everyone, it's Jennifer from Flux. In this video, we're going to learn how to crochet the Graphic Blooms skirt. This is a super easy, classic granny join-as-you-go project, and I'm going to walk you through every step of the way. Now, the one I have here, I've customized it for the person I'm giving it to in terms of color and sizing. But the finished piece I have here measures about 14 inches wide and about 22 inches tall. However, later on in the video, I'm going to show you how to really customize this to fit both circumference, height, everything. So we've also added this pretty satin tie to the top, and I'm going to share with you some different options for other ties or sashes as well. So let's get started. For this project, you'll need a 5mm H crochet hook, a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle. A ruler or tape measure is super helpful as you build and work on your granny squares to make your skirt, and your yarn. We're going to be using a yarn called Chic Sheep. This is Marley Bird's yarn, and this is from Red Heart. This is merino wool. I did a Yarn 101 on this a while back, so you can check that out if you want to learn a little bit more about the yarn. But the colors I'll be using, now obviously you can use any colors you like, but I'm going to be using 1 ball of green tea, 1 ball of polo, 2 balls of Mai Tai, and 1 ball of dragon fruit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 balls in all. Now, if you want to make your skirt a little bit shorter or longer, you'll obviously more or less yarn. Because it's granny squares, you could even start off with a little bit of yarn and kind of buy as you go as well, or add yarn in as you go. Now, each ball of this is 186 yards, just to give you an idea of how much each ball is and how much you'll need. So let's get started. One more thing I'd like to mention, if you need to substitute yarn, just look for a yarn that recommends a 5mm H crochet hook and is a 4 medium on the yarn weight scale. One more thing you'll need if you want to do the satin sash like I did is some ribbon. Now I have here some, let's see, 7/8 inch wide, just some pink satin ribbon. I kind of wanted to mimic some of these colors. Let me grab one of them that I was getting in the square. So I took one of the squares with me to the store and I just kind of found the best one that I liked. So if you want to do that, that's great. You could also do a different type of ribbon. You could do a crochet chain as well. So you could just do a really simple little chain, but I'm going to do a ribbon sash just because I like the look of it. Okay, so I grabbed a bunch of the squares. I made a bunch of them ahead of time because I wanted to show you as we work along the order of the colors that we'll be doing. For my squares, now obviously you can do this however you like, but I did 2 rounds of the Mai Tai, 2 rounds of the darker pink, 1 round of the polo, and 1 round of the lighter green. So you can kind of see the sequence that I'll be using. Now when we do the join as you go and join all these squares together, I'm going to go back to the Mai Tai and use that color to connect them all. The other thing I wanted to mention is to have your tape measure handy, because what you'll be doing is kind of sizing this to fit you. So each one of the squares that I got was about 6.5 inches wide and 6.5 inches tall. Now before you begin, what you'll want to do is measure the widest part of your hips, because that's going to be the widest part, and then you'll use the satin ribbon to kind of cinch the waist, and then the bottom of the skirt will flow however you like. You can make a shorter kind of mini skirt. You can make it go all the way down to the ground. So you want to measure the widest part of your hips first to give you kind of an idea of the circumference. Now, judging by the size of the squares that I have and the person that I'm making this for, I'm going to be doing 4 squares around. So I'm going to be making a tube of 4 squares. So let me kind of lay this out so I can show you. See how it just kind of wraps around and makes a tube? So this is going to be the main part of my skirt, and then we're going to be building length to it later. We'll be using the decorative holes from our squares to kind of weave the ribbon belt in and out of when we're finished. So I just wanted to give you an idea about the construction of this. Now you can also adjust your skirt by making your squares larger or smaller. So this is kind of like a build as you go. Now I would recommend creating the tube first and kind of slipping it on And if you need to go wider, you could always add another square. Now, it doesn't have to be exact because, again, we're going to be using the satin tie to kind of cinch the waist up a little bit. You don't want it to be massive or way too tight, but you want to kind of get it kind of right in the middle, but it doesn't have to be an exact science. Now, something else to keep in mind when we're doing the join as you go technique, it's going to add another round to all of these squares. So you really want to measure your tube with some gaps in between because you want to account for, you know, let's say here, each round is about, for my personal tension, each round is about, oh, let's say 3/4 of an inch. So if you multiply that by 2, because this will have an additional round and this will have an additional round, it's going to expand your tube a little bit. So I just wanted to point that stuff out before we begin. Okay, so with all that in mind, once I got my width, or my tube is going to be 4 squares around, and then my length, so I'll need a total of 12 squares. So you'll have to figure out how much length you'd like, because I'm doing 4 around, and then I'm going to make my skirt 3 squares tall, based on the person that I'm giving this project to when I'm all finished with it. So 4 times 3 is 12. 3 squares tall, 4 squares around, okay? So let's begin. We're going to grab the Mai Tai. And again, please feel free to use any color combination you like. And it's actually fun when we all use different colors and see what everybody chooses. And it's fun to see what a pattern looks like in different colors as well. So we're really just going to start by making a classic granny square. I'm going to get you started on these rounds. And then, you know, we can kind of go from there. And I'm going to show you how to switch colors later on as well. Okay? So let's begin our granny square. Now, what we're going to do is put a slip knot on our hook. So wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind that loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. And just to recap, we're using the 5mm H hook. Okay, so what we're going to do is chain 4. Now, as a side note, if you prefer the magic ring technique, feel free to use that instead. So what we're going to do is wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, before we go any farther, let me scoot these squares out of the way, and I'm going to zoom in so you can really see the stitches, okay? So in the chain farthest from the hook, back here, we're going to insert the hook into that chain, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook, and then you can kind of open it. That's the ring that we're going to be working our stitches into. Now, again, magic ring, feel free to do that if you like that better. And then this tail here, we're going to hold this along the edge as we work. Okay, so let's get started with round 1. What we're going to do is chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then work 2 double crochets into the center of the ring. So wrap yarn around hook, insert the hook into the center, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops, and then work 1 more, just like that. And then keep holding that tail along the edge. You can slide things over a bit if you like. Then you're going to chain 1, and then you're going to work 3 double crochets into the center of the ring. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, next we're going to chain 1, work 3 more double crochets into the center of the ring. 1, 2, and 3. Slide things over if needed. Go ahead and chain 1 and then work 3 more double crochets into the center of the ring. So 1, 2, and 3 to finish it up, okay? Do 1 more chain, and then we're going to join where we began. Remember that chain 3 we did at the beginning of the round? We're going to join by counting 3 chains up. 1, 2, 3. Insert the hook into that topmost chain, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and that is how you join it with a slip stitch. Now, it doesn't look like much yet, but if you kind of pull everything apart, remember those chain 1s we did? Those are going to create spaces. So what you're going to have is sort of like a little plus sign to begin, okay? Now I'm going to show you 2 things. So for some of the rounds, we're sticking with the same color, and we're going to transition a little bit differently. versus some of the rounds where we hop to a new color. So I'm going to do the second round of Mai Tai, and then we're going to do the second, or actually the third round in a new color, and I'm going to show you how to join on a new color, okay? If making a classic granny square of something you've already done, please feel free to skip ahead to the join as you go portion of the video as well. Okay, so when you're sticking with the same color and you finish a round, now I'm going to tighten this tail a little bit so that it closes up that hole. But when you stick with the same color, you need to slip stitch over to that first chain one space, and we're not in that spot just yet. So insert the hook into the next stitch and work a slip stitch. So you're going to do that by inserting the hook into the stitch, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. We're just slip stitching over to the correct spot so we can start a new round. Okay, because we're not quite in the right spot yet. Okay, so now we're to that first chain one space that you come to. So let's begin the new round. Now, if you look at our square, that's round 2 of our square here, okay? As we proceed, it's going to get a little bit more looking like a square, okay? So go ahead and chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Now work 2 double crochets into that chain one space, 1 and 2. Now chain 1, and then work 3 double crochets into that same space. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, chain 1. Now you're going to skip this group of 3 double crochets from the previous round and hop over to the next chain 1 space, okay? And then we're going to work another corner. So this is how we're going to work corners. So work 3 double crochets. That was 1, 2, and 3. Then we're going to chain 1 and then work 3 more double crochets into that chain 1 space. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so you have your first 2 corners here. Now it's starting to take on a little bit more of a square shape. Okay, so chain 1, hop over to the next chain 1 space. Remember, we skip over this group here because we're going to be keeping these in groups. And we're going to do the corner the same way. 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and then do the same thing. 1, 2, let me get a little bit more yarn, and 3. Okay, next corner complete. Okay, chain 1. Now hop over to that last corner space. It may look a little jumbly because see how we have that chain 3 might crowd it a little bit, but look for that chain 1 space and then work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, whoops, let me slide down a little bit. 3, chain 1, and then 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Then chain 1, and then we're back where we started. So count 3 chains up once again, join with a slip stitch to close the round, okay? So far we've learned how to begin our granny square and work the first 2 rounds of the same color. Now we're ready to switch colors. Now you may or may not be ready to do this, but I'm going to show you so you know both scenarios. Some of you may want to just do a solid color skirt, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, let me grab a pair of scissors because I like to trim my ends as I go so they don't get all mixed up. Okay, now we're also going to cut the yarn and fasten off. So wrap the yarn around the hook and just pull it through, okay? Now, any one of these corner spaces, see our corners? I like to sharpen them up after each round. It really gets that nice square shape. Let's grab our next color of yarn and we're going to tie it into any of these corner spaces. So locate a corner space, any one you like. Bring the new yarn through, leave a little tail in there, and then just tie it right on, okay? I'm going to show you how to work round 3. Now round 3 is basically how you're going to work every round, but if you notice, if we look at our square, each round will add a side. So right now we've just done corners. So we just finished this round here and we did corner, 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 corner. When we work this next round of the new color, it's going to look a little different. So it's going to be corner, side, corner, side, corner, side, corner. The row after that will add another side. So it'll be corner, side, side, corner, side, side, corner, side, side, corner, and so forth. And then the next round, this dark green polo color, will add an additional side. So it'll be corner, side, 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 corner. And then if you see the light green, it's corner, side, 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 side. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it just keeps growing, growing. If we were to keep making this square, the next round would have 5 sides, the next round would have 6 sides, and so forth. And that's how your square grows. The corners are always work the same, and there's always 4 of them, obviously. Okay, let's go back to our square here. I'm going to show you, we're going to go through this entire round together, and then we're going to kind of work on our squares, and then I'll show you how to join them all together. Again, if you want to make your squares larger or smaller, that's fine. Just be aware if you make more if you make your square bigger, you'll have to make less of them. If you make your squares little, you'll have to make lots and lots of them, okay? And again, you'll be working on your own personal circumference and your own personal length. It's a very customizable skirt. We're basically making a tube, okay? All right, let's go back to our square. Insert the hook into the corner space where you just tied this on and bring up a loop, and then you're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to work the corners the same way we've been working them. We're going to go 2 double crochets, because remember this chain 3 counts as one of our double crochets. So we're only working 2 when you have a chain like that. So go 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, chain 1, and then work 3 double crochets, all in that same corner space. So 1, 2, and 3, just like that. Okay, so I love these granny squares because they really come to life very quickly with the addition of more colors. Okay, I just wanted to point out too, I held that tail along the edges I worked, and it's just kind of hanging out there, so we'll just ignore that for now. As you can see, my other squares have lots of tails, so I'll deal with all those later. Some of you like to kind of trim them as you go. Some people like to just do it all at once. Okay, let's work our first side. So we're going to chain 1, and then see how we have a side here? We'll work 3 double crochets into that side. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1, and then into the corner again. So 3 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and 3 more double crochet. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, we're back at a side again. So work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Now I've come to a tail. Chain 1. I'm just going to hold it along the edge and keep going, okay? Let me get a little bit more yarn off this yarn ball. All right, we're at a corner again. So 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, 3 more double crochet. 1, get some yarn, 2, and 3. Okay, it's starting to look very pretty and very much like the beginnings of our other squares as well. Okay, continuing around, we're going to chain 1. Always remember to put the chain 1s in between these groupings because you'll get your spacing nice and neat. If you forget one, it could draw in a little bit. Okay, let's work a side. You can choose to hold the tail a little bit longer if you need to. Work 3 double crochets into that side space, that chain 1 space that you created in the last round. So 3 double crochet, just like that, chain 1. I'm going to drop that tail. I feel like it's been woven in sufficiently. And then we're going to work our next corner. So 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, chain 1, same space, 3 more. 1, 2, let me just get a little more yarn here, and 3. Okay, just like that. And then chain 1, and then work 3 double crochets into that last side space. See, we come all the way around with this beautiful purpley pinky color, and then chain 1. And now we're at the beginning again. We're going to do the same thing we've done in previous rounds. Count 3 chains up, 1, 2, 3, join with a slip stitch to close the round, okay? Now, as you can see, I did 2 rounds of this color, so I'm going to stick with this color. I'm going to get you started on the next round, but for the rest of your square, you'll just be repeating the same thing over and over again, except for you'll be adding some sides. And you'll know what to do. When you come to a side, and you're still on the side, you add a side. When you come to these corners, see how these corners kind of build on themselves? You'll do corners, okay? So let's get started on this next round, and then you can keep going with the rest of your rounds, adding the greens in later as well. Okay, so remember, you aren't totally in the right spot here. So we're going to slip stitch over to that first corner space. So locate those stitches and just kind of slip stitch right on over to the corner space. And here we are at our corner space. So I'm just gonna get our yarn situated here and then chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now work your corner the way you've been working them at the start of each round. So 2 double crochets, remember, because that chain 3 counts as one of our double crochets. So that was 2 double crochet, chain 1, and then 3 double crochet, all in the same side corner space rather, to create that corner. Okay, so that was 1, 2, and then this is 3. So we have our next corner right there. And I always like to pull those nice and sharp. All right, so chain 1, and then we're just going to continue around the same way we've been doing. I just wanted to show you one little thing here. This is a side, so we're going to work 3 double crochet, chain 1, and then but this one we have another side, okay? But you can see that it's on the sides. Every time you have a side, you work a side. When you come to these corners again, you just work a corner right into it, okay? So that's 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and work your next side, okay? So I'm going to continue around working my squares, and we're going to take a moment in video time to finish our squares, and when we rejoin in just a minute, we're going to grab all these squares over here and we're going to start joining them together using the join as you go technique. If you've never done this before, it's a really nice looking way to join squares together. It looks very nice. It lays flat. There's lots of different ways you can join squares, but this is my favorite way. If you've done any of the Fiber Flux crochet along, a lot of our blanket projects and some of our other projects have used this technique as well. So just continue working on your squares. Now, I wanted to mention too, if you don't want to make all the squares first, you can make a couple, join as you go, and then make some squares, join those on, make some squares. So it's really the style you like to do it. Normally, I make all of my squares and then join them, but feel free to do whatever you like, okay? So continue working your squares until you have at least a couple of them, and then you'll be ready to join me as we do the join as you go. Okay, so once you have a couple of squares, just a handful, you don't need a whole bunch of them, I would say maybe enough to get you that tube going, and then you can build off of that. So I'm going to grab one of my squares here, and then what we're going to do is work. Now I'm using the Mai Tai to join all of my squares together. I'm going to keep it like a consistent seam around them in the same color. but you can really use any color, and you could use this same green color if you like, so that so these like, to me they look like flowers with kind of foliage around them. So if you want them to look kind of like flowers on in a bouquet or in a bush or something, you know, that using that same green might be a really pretty way to do that. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is grab one of your squares, and you're just going to work, we're not joining anything yet, you're just going to work a regular round of your join as you go color around one square, okay? So just as a refresher, insert your hook into any of the corner spaces, bring the new yarn through, tie it right on, and I'm just going to work a round of the Mai Tai color around one of these squares, okay? So it's actually the second square where you start joining it on. So we need to create like a foundation, I guess, if you will. Okay, so bring the new yarn, bring the loop up, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, work your corner, same thing we've been doing, okay? 2 double crochet. So if you've made a bunch of squares by now, you guys will be experts at this part. So I'm just going to get you started on this round, and then we'll rejoin in just a second. So work 3 double crochet all in that same corner space. We're just doing a regular round of the Mai Tai color. We're not joining anything to this one yet, okay? That will happen when we start working on the second square. Okay, so just keep working your colors all the way around. And I'm going to go ahead and work this round, and when we get almost to the end, we'll rejoin and we'll start working on joining everything together. Okay, I'm just coming up to the very end of this round, and I've put that Mai Tai color on this. Part of the reason why I picked these really beautiful colors is so you could really see them on camera, but also I love these colors so much, but I really wanted you to be able to see the contrast as we worked as well. Okay, so once you're finished, I joined with a slip stitch, same thing we've done for all the other rounds, and then we're going to cut the yarn and fasten off, and then we're going to grab our second square. So just put this one aside, grab the Mai Tai color again, and I just wanted to give you, this is a little personal preference of mine, but see how we stopped here and the end is here? Instead of tying it into there, it'll create a little bit of bulk. So just pick a different corner. If you don't mind that, that's fine too. Okay, so let's get ready to join. What we're gonna do is tie the new yarn on, same thing we've been doing. Same thing, nothing different about this part. Okay, now go ahead and reach in that corner space, bring up a loop, bring up a loop, and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, we're going to work half of this corner and then join it. So have your other square handy and kind of line them up. I like to do joining as you go stuff on a flat surface. It just makes everything lay out nicer. Okay, so we did a chain 3. Then we're going to work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, just like that. Okay, now instead of doing the chain 1, we're going to go ahead and join it. So locate the corner space of your other square, which ours is right up here. See right here? And what we're going to do is we're going to work a slip stitch into this corner space of this other square that already has the Mai Tai around it, instead of doing the chain 1, okay? So you do a chain 1 when there's nothing you want to join it to. You work a slip stitch when you need to join it on, okay? So the easiest way to do this is holding your project. It's a little fiddly the first time you do it, but it's a lot to hold. Go ahead into, see how I have my hook? Go in from the top into that corner space. We're gonna do this a bunch of times, so don't worry. Reach back and see that yarn I have on my finger? Scoop it up, bring up that loop. You'll have 2 loops on your hook. Now bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit so when we do this again, you'll be able to see it. Okay, let me just turn everything a little bit. Okay, so we have our join, and now we're going to finish off our corner. So into that same corner space where we worked our stitches, just work 3 more double crochets, okay? So 1, 2, and 3. Okay? Now, normally we would do a chain 1, but because we're joining, we're going to make another join into our neighbor square over here. Okay, so locate the next corner space. See how I have it laid on the table? It just makes it a lot easier. Go in from the top with your hook, reach back, scoop up that yarn, just like that. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, okay? Our next join has been made. So then what you're gonna do is locate the next space to work your stitches in, which is right here. Work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3, okay? Now we're gonna go back here to the next place we need, because we would normally do a chain 1, but instead of doing that chain 1, we're gonna do a join. So go in from the top, reach back, scoop up the yarn, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, okay? And we're just gonna do this all the way across. So work your next 3 stitches where you would normally work them. 1, 2, 3. We're gonna stop when we're done this side and look at our handiwork, okay? Okay, so next what we're gonna do is, instead of that chain 1, we're gonna make our join. So going from the top, reach back, scoop up the yarn, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. Work your next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and then we're ready to join again. Okay, so locate that chain 1 space from the other neighboring square. Go in from the top, reach back and scoop up the yarn, bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook, okay? Work your next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, make your join, go in from the top, scoop up that yarn, bring the loop through, work your next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Go in from the top, reach back, scoop up the yarn, bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook. Just like that. Now, we are at the end. So we just joined our first squares. Don't they look beautiful? They look just so nice and flat and fluid. Okay, so go into, we're at another corner again. So what we're gonna do is the same thing we did up here. We're gonna work half of a corner, okay? So locate the corner space and do 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. And instead of doing that chain 1, remember we're going to go into the corner space of our neighboring square, reach back, scoop up the yarn, and then we're ready to finish that corner. So you can turn your work as needed. And again, laying it on the table is super helpful. Okay, so go in here, work your 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so we've officially joined square 1 onto square 2. So what you're going to do is, now we don't have any more sides to join in, so we're just going to work the rest of the Mai Tai all the way around like we normally would. So just as a refresher, hop over to that next corner, or next space rather, which is right here, and work your 3 double crochets. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Now, we're not joining at this time. Let me just pull a little bit more yarn out. We're not joining anything at this time, so we're going to go ahead and do a chain 1 now, okay, because there's nothing here to join it onto, okay? So work your next set of 3 double crochets, and we're just going to do this all the way around. Work the sides like you've been working the sides, and work the corners like you've been working the corners. So chain 1, move on to the next grouping. Okay, remember to put those chain 1s in there as you work the rest of your round, because it'll get it to lay nice and flat, which is really important when you're wearing something too. You don't want it to be, you don't want it to have any like bunchy, weird areas that, you know, won't lay nice on you as you wear your garment, okay? So I'm just gonna keep going around, and then we're gonna join the rest of our squares on But when we start building downward to get length, I'm going to show you how to handle certain areas. For example, when you need to join this area where you have two corners, it's helpful to know where to join those areas as well. So I'm going to continue around, and then we're going to keep adding some more squares on. Okay, I just wanted to show you one little thing. As you come around and you did this last round, not joining anything, just the regular round, you're just going to join the same way you would. So count those 3 chains up, the same thing you've been doing, just to finish that off. Now, cut the yarn because we're going to grab our 3rd square. Now again, I'm going to be doing the tube first, the very top part that's going to go around the waist and like probably the upper hips. And we need to grab our 3rd square. So again, earlier in the video I mentioned I'm going to be doing mine 4 squares around. You may need less, you may need more, it's really up to you, but measuring and kind of wrapping this thing around you while you're working, or around, you know, the measurement, if you're making it for someone else like I am, using the measurements of that person. But if you're making it for yourself, it's easy just to kind of slip it on real quick. Okay, so to add on the next square, we're going to do the same thing we did. We're really just doing the exact same thing we just did. So I'm going to get you started, but if you need to see that joining part in more detail, definitely just feel free to back up the video. So join on the new color, the same Mai Tai we're using for the seam. You can also use a different color to join each square, which would be really fun as well. It really depends on how bold you want to get with this. Some people like to keep their garments more neutral. It's really a personal preference. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm just going to get you started down this side so we can get our tube going. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, work your 2 double crochets. I'm holding that tail along the edge. That'll save you some work at the end as well. Work your 2nd double crochet. Okay, let's grab a little bit more yarn. Okay, now I worked half of my corner, and the same thing. I'm just going to locate the corner on this side, and actually let's turn this upward so you can see it. Okay, so locate that corner space of this other square, go in from the top, reach back and scoop up the yarn, and bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook, and finish off the corner. Okay, so work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3, okay? Then you're just going to proceed as you did before by joining, whoops, I got myself tangled here. This needs to come under my piece. This is why it's nice to lay it on the table so you can see exactly what's happening here. Okay, let me grab my hook. There we go, okay. So we're just going to do the same thing we did back here for our other square, and just when you need to join it, when you're on that side, just go in from the top and scoop it up. Work your stitches into the square, okay? Again, back up the video if needed, okay? You can watch it as many times as you need. There's even, if you fiddle with the settings a little bit, there's a slow motion feature. You can watch everything in slow motion as well. Okay, so I'm going to go down and join this side and finish up the square, and then we're going to join our last square, and we're going to bring it together to create that tube shape, okay? Okay, so I've been going along joining my squares, so now I have 4 squares. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I've just been doing the same thing, just repeating to make a nice long strip of them, basically. So now I've come to the side of the last square. So once you get to the side of your last square, you're going to need to bring your strip back around and make it into a tube. So once you're ready to do that, see how they are going to meet? Get to that first corner, and it's the same exact thing. It's just like when we joined on all these other squares, okay? So what you're going to do is work, once again, same thing, work half of your corner. So work 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3. Then you're going to join it. Same thing we've been doing. We're just creating a join that will construct this tube for us. but it's the same exact thing, okay? Then work 3 double crochet to finish off that corner. So 1, 2, and 3. Then we're going, whoops, got that last loop there. Then we're going to join. Again, this is the same, let me get that tail out of the way there. This is the same exact thing we've been doing, okay? But we're going to have a tube. We're going to have the very beginnings of a skirt shape, so that's really exciting. So work 3 double crochets into the next space. That's 1, 2, and 3. Join into the next space. Work 3 double crochets into the next space. 1, 2, and 3. Join into the next space and work 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Join into the next space. We're just moving right across here. Same thing we've been doing. I just wanted to show you because the concept of turning a strip into a tube, for me, I like to see the visual. Work your join into the next space. Work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, 3. Whoops, the yarn ball is rolling away. Okay, now join into the next space. And then we're at the corner again. So work 3 double crochets into that corner. 1, 2, whoops, got split there. 3. Now locate the corner space of the other square. Join and 3 more double crochet. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now it's all joined. We have a tube. We have the top of our skirt. So if you're at this point along with me, you might want to, before we cut the yarn and everything and fasten off, you might want to just slip it on and make sure it goes over the widest part of your hips. And legs too is helpful. Let me just back up. My stitch got a little funky here. Okay, so we're just finishing that. I just wanted to redo that corner. Never feel like you can't rip something out and go back and do it. I do that all the time. Okay, so now we're just going to finish. See, this top edge just needs to be finished. And again, we're not joining along this top edge, so you're going to put those chain 1s in between, okay? So 1, 2, 3. Chain 1. 1, 2, 3, chain 1. Whoops. Sometimes, like I said, you gotta pull it out and start over. 1, 2, 3, chain 1. And we're coming up to the home stretch. 1, 2, 3, chain 1. This is the same way we've been doing the rest of the squares. Okay, so you're going to chain 1, and now we're right back where we started. So once again, count 3 chains up, join with a slip stitch to close, and you can go ahead and cut the yarn at this point. So now we're going to start building downward, okay? So you can see we have the very beginnings of our skirt. Now I wanted to point out, see how it dips a little? We're going to add a little single crochet edge to the top later on, and that'll get our edge nice and clean, okay? So now we have the top. We are ready to start working downward, okay? Okay, so I wanted to show you one little thing here. As we join the bottom squares on and start to build the length on our skirt, you're going to run into joins that aren't what we've encountered so far. So the first thing I wanted to show you was when 2 squares meet and you're joining a 3rd square onto them. So what you want to do is go ahead and start working on the corner, and like we've done before, work half of this corner. Now if you notice, I've already come up this side just to make it a little bit easier, so we're not starting at the join. So, but you can do whatever you like. Okay, so just work half of that corner. Remember the 3 double crochet, 2 and 3, just like that. And then instead of working into the corner spaces to make your join like we did before, if we joined into the corner space here or here, it would be off center. So what we're going to do is go in between them. See how when you kind of pull the squares open a little bit, there is an opening, okay? So just go in from the top like we've done before, in between the squares this time, scoop up the yarn, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and then you can finish up. Let me move my yarn a little bit so it doesn't get twisted up here. Then you can continue with your corner and across the row, okay? 1, 2, and 3, okay? So let's, let me move my hook out of the way, and you can see that that corner is now joined onto the other 2 squares, and it is nice and even. See how it lines up with the square directly above it. So you want to go in between the squares in that instance. All right, one last situation you'll encounter when you're joining your squares. So far we've joined 2 squares onto one another, and then we've joined 1 square onto 2 squares in the corner here. Now the last situation you'll encounter with your squares is joining a square into 3 other squares. So see how these 3 squares kind of come together? So you'll need to know how to join those as well. And then you'll have, you know, all of the scenarios, different scenarios figured out, and you can finish your skirt in its entirety. So let me just show you the last join. When you have 3 like this, if you look at kind of where they converge, see how you can see, now let me zoom way in here. See how there is a little like horizontal bar here? That's where you want to make your join, okay? And that will keep it everything all lined up, okay? So I've already worked half of the corner like we've done before. Now, you're gonna come in with your hook and see that little horizontal bar? Go into that bar from the top once again, reach back, whoops, I dropped it. Go into that bar, reach back, scoop up the yarn like you've been doing, and then bring it through the loop, okay? And then if you need to turn your work, that's fine. And then finish that corner by working your 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And then, you know, obviously we'll have to join down the side, but we've already learned how to do that. So let me just get my hook out of the way. So you can see now that all 4 corners now are connected, okay? So just proceed and keep joining your squares. Now see how I'm just kind of like creating another tube that's hooked onto this tube. So I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3 levels of my skirt. Now again, you can make your skirt, here, let me zoom out a little bit so you can see it a little bit. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to keep going and add another level to mine. So there'll be another layer, if you will, here. Now, like I mentioned earlier in the video, you could make yours floor length. You could make yours a shorter skirt, however you want to customize the length. And okay, so just keep working on your building your squares and get the length you want. And then we're going to rejoin in just a moment once I've hooked a couple more of these squares on here and we have the main part of our skirt. And I'm going to just show you how to do some of the finish work. We're going to add a little bit of an edge at the top here, so it looks a little bit straighter and cleaner and neater. And then we're going to add a little bit of something to the bottom. And finally, we're going to finish up by adding our sash, okay? So stay tuned, keep adding your squares, and we'll rejoin in just a minute. Okay, so all of our squares are joined, and we basically have this really fun tube now. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to do is the top portion here, and the bottom portion, I just wanted to get a nice little single crochet edge around the top just to kind of neaten things up a little bit. Then we're going to deal with all these ends. As you can see, I have lots of them, and then we'll add our tie and our skirt will be complete. Okay, so once again, I did 4 squares around and 3 squares tall. Again, you can customize this however you like to get the dimensions that you're after. Okay, so to do the single crochet edging, it's super easy. All we're going to do is I'm going to use the same color yarn because it'll blend nicely. And we're just going to tie it into any of these corner spaces here. We're going to be putting a single crochet in the corner spaces and all the stitches around, okay? So just tie the yarn into any of these corner spaces here. And we're going to do the same exact thing for the top edge and the bottom edge. Now, if you like, you could add more rounds. You could do one of every color that you used in the squares to give it a little bit of a band. You could also do a ruffle. You could add some tassels or pom-poms or what have you. So reach back into the corner space here, bring up a loop, chain 1, and then work a single crochet into that corner space. Then work a single crochet into the area in between the squares. Work a single crochet into that corner space on this side, and then see how you come across stitches. So wherever you come across a stitch, add a single crochet. Wherever you have a space, add another single crochet. See how I'm working them into the spaces as well. We're just trying to get a nice little neat edge. As you can see, it's kind of leveling out a little bit, okay? Just kind of neatens things up. It makes it look a little bit more finished. So I'm going to go ahead and add a single crochet in each stitch and in each space all the way around. And I'm going to do the same for the other side. And once I get towards the end, we're going to rejoin and I'm going to show you how to do some of this finish work here. And we're going to add our sash and our skirt will be complete. Okay, so I added the single crochet edging to both the top and bottom, and I'm just joining on that last stitch there to finish it off. Okay, so our official skirt, or our skirt rather, is officially completed, and it looks really pretty, really fun. Okay, so once your skirt is complete, you can take it and let's turn it inside out. And this is the fun of all of the ends. So whenever you have squares and lots of colors and joining, you're going to have a ton of ends. So what we're going to do is when you turn your skirt inside out, now I have done the job of weaving in my ends as I went along. So a lot of these, see how this one is sort of, you know, tucked in there? A lot of these we can simply trim. So what I like to do is just go through and trim all the ones that are tucked in there. Now you can save these scraps for stuffing things like your stuffies or your amigurumi or your throw pillows. So I always save yarn clippings. They come in handy. And sometimes kids like to use yarn clippings for craft projects as well. You can make little art pieces with them. Okay, so everything that is tucked in, kind of woven in as we went along, I'm just snipping those off. Now you're also going to encounter some things where, let me find one here, where you're going to have to grab your tapestry needle and weave it in. One of these top edges would probably be a good candidate. Let's see if we can find one. There's just so many ends. Okay, so here's one. So this one, we couldn't really weave that one in as we went along. It's where we ended one of those edgings. So just thread your tapestry needle and then just stay in the pink area because if you try to go into this green, for example, it'll really show and not look as nice. So just go in one direction with this pink strand and then come back in the other direction to kind of lock that tail into place. And then you can grab your scissors and just trim. Now I'm going to go through and weave the rest of these weave the rest of the ends in or snip them as needed. And then we're going to add our sash and our skirt will be complete. It's getting super exciting now. We are absolutely in the home stretch of our project. Okay, all the ends are woven in, and I just have to show you my little pile of ends over here is quite large. So what we're going to do next is we're going to, whoops, and I found one I found a sneaky end that I missed. Okay, what we're gonna do now is do our sash. So grab your ribbon, and I'm gonna weave in this end really quick just to get it out of the way. So you're gonna grab your ribbon, and I am probably going to use the entire spool just to, so I have some nice tails hanging down, and it'll make it look very elegant. All right, so I just had 2 stray ends. There were so many ends. I'm not surprised at all I missed these 2 ends. Okay, so let's trim those. And I think I saw one more over here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Hiding out. Okay, so let me just grab these last 2. And again, save those yarn scraps because they are, they come in handy. I've actually seen people even use yarn scraps to create little like yarn art, like mosaics, and it was really pretty. So there's a lot of things you can do with them. Okay, now we're ready to add our sash. Okay, because it's a giant tube, basically, locate where you want the top and the bottom of your skirt to be. So I'm going to make this the top. So let me kind of roll up the bottom here so we can see this a little bit more clearly. And you just want to straighten it out. Okay, this is my ribbon. Now I'm using a wide ribbon, but you can really use whatever you like. Now I'm going to go ahead and just pull all this ribbon out. I got quite a bit here, but I want to have some nice long tails in mine, okay? So what we're going to do is you'll want to figure out what you want the front of your skirt to be. Do you want a seam down the middle, or would you rather have it sort of off-centered? I'm just going to make mine tie right in the center. So let's do this. Now you can go ahead and weave it in all the way around, or you can kind of eyeball it and see where you want it to go, because I'm going to start in the back and come around, okay? So I know this looks like a crazy ribbon mess right now, but just bear with me for a moment. Okay, so this is the back of our skirt. So we're going to come in. Now there's a shiny side and a more dull side. Try to keep the shiny side facing out. And then we're just going to go, I'm going to go 1 down into this green row and just bring the ribbon through, just like that. And now look, those ends are creeping over. And then take the other end here. Now, if it gets twisted up, that's okay. You can always kind of go back and fix it. Okay, and then I'm going to take this one here, and now we can kind of weave it in and out all the way around, okay? So we're just pick a row, rather. I'm going to stay in this green row just so it's straight, because if we start hopping up and down the rows, it'll kind of look sloppy, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and weave in and out. I'm doing every other granny cluster. See how I'm going like that, in and out of them? And we're just going to kind of go all the way around. And then when you get to the corner space, you can kind of just go in between it of your square. All right, so I'm going to continue weaving my ribbon, and then we'll rejoin. And if you see how I have a tail popping out, you can just trim those as needed. So I'm just going to keep weaving in and out, and we'll rejoin in just a moment and tie it all up. Okay, so everything is woven in. You'll just want to get it kind of straightened out, get that ribbon nice and flat so it looks pretty nice and flat. Now see if you have some folds here, you can sort of straighten those out a little bit. Just like that. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video, but if you want to do like a crochet chain, that would look very pretty as well. So what you want to do next is, once you get your ribbon all straightened out, you want to do like a sort of like a test tie on your ribbon. Now I made my tails very, very long so that they, I could cut them, and I didn't want to like short myself on ribbon here. So you want to tie your bow, because that's how it's going to be tied when it's worn. And you know, you'll need to fiddle with it a little bit to get it nice and pretty. But then you can kind of cut the tails as long as you'd like them to be. Okay, so, And I would recommend when you see clothes, they kind of cut the ribbon at an angle like that, and it looks a little dressier like that. So you can cut it at an angle, okay? So our Graphic Blooms skirt is complete, and it looks very pretty. Now, if you're interested, because granny squares are kind of holy, if you're interested in adding a lining, hop on over to the Fiber Flux blog, and I've provided some links on adding a lining to your skirt if you need to do that as well. So that is how you crochet the Graphic Blooms skirt. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.